There we go. From the beginning. All right. Everything look good? Okay, so my challenge is to get all this great information out in 30 minutes. I can do it. I can do it. So just a quick professional introduction, even though he gave me a real nice one here, just so you know who you're hearing from. I have a background in HR. I did the hiring for my company when I lived in the Washington, D.C. area. And I've also been a career coach for some time. So I really enjoy that I have both sides of the perspective. I've done the hiring, and I also like to help people find the job. And to me, the most important thing is finding the right fit. Because if you're not happy, you're not going to be a productive employee. So I have a corporate and also academic background in HR, meaning I taught HR in a number of colleges. And as he said, Interviews That Work is my company. I'm right here in Chattanooga. So why is it important to find the right fit? Here's some statistics that I find very sobering. You spent over 90,000 hours at work. I calculated that based on when you graduate college and the average amount of time people work in a lifetime. That's a lot of time. So you want to be happy, right? Another sobering statistic, 33% increase in heart attacks on Monday morning. That means people are stressed. People are not happy when they go to work. And I find that really depressing. And I'm not sure about this last statistic, about how accurate it is, but 120,000 deaths from poor management. At least I can say that I've met a lot of people who say they quit their job because of their boss. So I want to say, don't be a part of the working dead. And if you like the show, The Walking Dead, you should hopefully appreciate that joke. So the title of this talk is Top 10. So number 1, job search and interview tip is know yourself. Because you don't know what to look for if you don't know what you want. You can't get there if you don't know where you're going, is the old saying. So basically, identify your strengths, your interests, your skills, and your values. And in the heart of all that, when all those are together, is your dream job. What are your values? Is it money? Is it work-life balance? You have to know what's important to you in order to find it. And you may think that's obvious, but yet I've had many career coaching clients in their 40s who still don't know themselves. And the reason why that happens is because they picked a career because their parents told them to, or because they heard it paid well, or they saw it on TV. I've actually met a couple of people who said, oh, I thought I'd want to be a doctor because I love that TV show with doctors. And they didn't pick things for the right reasons. And to me, the right reason first is figure out your why, which a lot of people have heard that expression, find your why. And I believe it's important to find your where after you find your why. And what that means is the right fit. So the very first step is figuring out your job target. And what that is a combination of function, industry, and geographic location. So if, let's say, you want Chattanooga, that's your geographic location. Your function could be HR or accounting or marketing. And then industry, you might think you can do what you do anywhere, and you probably can, but companies like industry knowledge. They want to know that you know their industry. So when you pick your job target, everything you do after that should be very strategic. So know yourself, know where you want to work. Research companies and organizations. How do you do that? Well, there's a lot of great websites out there. I can skip down to this Crunchbase is a new one actually for me. I hadn't heard of it before, but it is fabulous for researching companies. And you should do that not only to look for companies you want to potentially apply to, but if you get an interview, you should absolutely learn everything you can about a company before going in. So research your companies, find out everything you can. Who's their leadership? What's their mission? What are their values? What do they believe in? What benefits do they offer? You look at reviews on things like Glassdoor. If you have not checked out Glassdoor, that's a very helpful website for learning, first-person accounts. What do people really think about a company? So we're still under number 1, know yourself. The 2-minute pitch. Some people call that an elevator pitch. When you run into someone in an elevator, or you're networking, you're at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, or your local SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, wherever you are, we have a really short attention span. You can't go on and on and on when people ask you what you do, because they're just going to start doing this and not hearing what you're saying. So here's what you need to tell them. What do you bring to the party that competitors do not? What's the most important thing you want them to know about you? What are your key selling points? And think about, to whom are you pitching? Who are you talking to? Because that's going to change what they're looking for. And what can you do for them that other people can't? Now, you're not going to sit, I don't mean answer each of these questions. I mean, come up with your pitch now so that it's ready when someone asks you, tell me about yourself, or what do you do? But think about these things when you are developing it. So as an example, here's mine. I'm Dr. Rose Opengart. I'm a career coach, author, and speaker with a corporate background in HRM and staffing. Utilizing my passion for work fit and happiness, I help people find their where so they achieve fulfillment and success. So something to that effect, when you meet somebody, be able to, quick, that wasn't even 2 minutes, that was about 20 seconds. But you get my point that it has to be quick, but yet tell them who you are, what you've done, where you want to go, and what you have to offer. And still part of number one, knowing yourself, is know you're a brand. So this is my picture on LinkedIn, and I chose that because I want to control the image that I project. I want to help control my brand. If I don't, then you will. So if you aren't branding yourself, you're giving someone else permission to do it for you. And that's part of the pitch. If you don't tell them what you have to offer, they have to guess. And all that is important to take into number two, the second tip, which is your resume needs to be very strategic. So you position yourself. Number one on here is you write that resume so that when they look at it, they see you how you want them to see you. So they look at that resume and they say, Austin Corcoran is A, and Austin has filled in the blank the way he wants them to see him. And if you don't do that, you're positioning yourself by your most recent job. So you really want a summary at the top, which is a good summary of you, but also where you want to be. So you never lie in a resume, ever, because it will come back to haunt you. But you can highlight certain things that position you for how you want them to see them. You can delete jobs, that's okay, that have nothing to do with where you want to go. And emphasize the jobs, build up the one that has the experience that you want them to see. So again, position yourself on your resume very strategically, so you define yourself and you brand yourself so that other people don't. Another thing to think about that people don't is accomplishments. Rather than just put duties, I did the marketing, I wrote policies, think about accomplishments. And things that qualify as accomplishments are things like, how did I make the company money? How did I save the company money? How did I improve processes? How did I can think of another example right now, but you understand where I'm going with it. So anything that you can think of that's accomplishments in addition to duties is really helpful. And when you're writing your strategic resume, always keep your job target in mind. And that job target, by the way, frames everything you do. So everything should be strategic. And that means where you choose to network, what trade magazines you read, so that you have the lingo and the language of the field that you're trying to get into, and how you spend your time. Everything should be very strategic. In other words, number three tip, you want to use multiple search techniques, and you do not want to spray and pray. And that's a really great phrase to explain the way some people job hunt. And what they do is they go on something like Indeed, and they just shoot their resume off to every single job that they see on there. And that's not really useful, and it's not strategic. So, the better thing to do, it's kind of like when you're investing, they tell you to diversify. Well, you want to diversify how you job search. So you really want to use multiple search techniques. By the way, I'd like to take a second off and ask a question. And if you can raise your hand to tell me who, I'm trying to figure out what my audience is right now. If you're all unemployed and looking, or if you are searching to switch careers. So can you raise your hand if you are switching careers in a totally different field? I gotta remember how to look. Uh-oh, Austin, I think you need to remind me.
At the bottom, you'll see a participants tab of your screen.
Yeah, we did this yesterday and now I don't see it.
Look down.
I see it. It's at the top actually, it's at the bottom. Okay.
Oh.
I see one hand. Okay, so only one person is switching careers. All right, that's interesting. So what about who's job hunting now? Who's either unhappy and wanting a new job or unemployed and looking for a new job? Can you raise your hand? Okay, so what's everybody here for? Maybe they're just planning for the future. Okay, well, I'll continue with sort of the general plan I was going with before, which covers a lot of different topics, just general top 10. And that should hopefully be helpful to everyone. And I will keep in mind the one person who's switching careers as well. So search firms are something that usually more higher level towards executive people use. Now ads are ads like you'd see in the newspaper or you'd see in Indeed. And you know what? I'm here to tell you from experience that a lot of jobs are not ever put in ads, especially in small towns. So I moved to Chattanooga from Huntsville, Alabama. And in Huntsville, when I was looking for an HR position, I would go to Society for Human Resource Management meetings. That's where all the jobs were announced. I rarely saw them in the newspaper. So you should look for your equivalent, the professional association for what you do. And Chattanooga has a lot, so there's probably something like it or the most closely to it that you can find here. And get in with your group and network. That's so much better than answering ads. Now, I'm not saying to do one and not the other, I'm saying to do all of them. But I have seen statistics anywhere from 80 to as much as 98% of jobs are found through networking. And it's just a fact. People like to hire people they know, people they're comfortable with, people they've met. And so those professional associations or even Chamber of Commerce meetings are very important because they get to know you and they're comfortable with you and they like you. And that's really critical. So direct contact, another thing that I want to tell people to do, a great process while you're job hunting is getting meetings. And normally you can try to get meetings in person. Now they might be over the phone, but developing relationships through meetings is really important. And what I mean by that is identify companies in town that might have jobs that you like. You contact whatever contact you have, preferably somebody who works in the area you want to work or who might be your boss, and say, hi, would you be able to share 20 minutes of your time? I'd love to meet with you and chat with you about your work. And they may not have a job open now, but they may in the future. And then they'll remember you, or they know somebody else who has a job and they remember you. And they say, hey, I was talking to this guy or this woman and they really impressed me. So getting meetings with people is really about establishing relationships. And on that note, it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And what that means is really those relationships, the networking, but really developing relationships is crucial to getting jobs, especially in small towns. I think it's even more important. All right, keeping an eye on my time here. We're on step 4, tip 4 of the top 10 tips. Optimize your online persona. Now, I feel like young professionals are much better at that than we old people who really don't know how to do some of this. But I gotta tell you, I used to work at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. And what I did there was I created an internship program for the College of Business. And it was a great program. I highly advise all college students to get internships. But I discovered that people did not think about how they appeared online through this process, because I would have students send me resumes from emails like too hot for you at yahoo.com or, too sexy for you. And you can imagine, I saw the gamut of interesting email addresses, and they would send me their resume and they would say, Dr. Opengart, please forward this. And I would write them back and say, really? Do you really want me to forward this to the hiring manager where it says too hot for you and too sexy for you? No. No, you want to create a professional email address, simply your name. It can be, for example, my Yahoo is roseopengart@yahoo.com. That's it. And so I would either send it back to them or I would save it and then forward it. So that's email address. LinkedIn, you probably are all familiar with. It's really important to, I think, to connect with people. And that's when you're trying to establish meetings and making a list of companies that might have jobs for you. Use LinkedIn if you don't already know somebody in the company to find contacts and start connecting with people that way. And maybe they are at a company or they know somebody else who's at the company you're interested in. LinkedIn is super. You can search for jobs. You can search for people at companies. Now, I'm also here to tell you that we HR people are searching online and checking people out. It happens all the time now. It's not just about references. If you apply for a job, they will most likely look at Instagram or Facebook and learn about you. So you need to go on your Facebook and your Instagram and pull out anything that's super divisive or inflammatory in any way. And especially now, I don't know about y'all, but I am watching the most interesting arguments happening on Facebook. And even if you have strong opinions about things, I think I would take that off of Facebook for job hunting, because it might stand in the way if you're super opinionated and you are not saying things in a professional way, which I'm finding is happening a lot now because people are angry. And so they're doing that. Take it off if you're job hunting, because they are going to look on your Facebook and your Instagram. And I think people don't realize that that's happening. So let's see, top 10 job tips. We are up to number 5. Be prepared. Okay, this is another theme that I saw way back when I was working with college students. And I think now that our audience is 20 to 40, I think you know better. But just in case you don't, please don't ever go into an interview and say, now, what does the company do? Because I had a student do that at University of Alabama. And it was a very good company that was coming to hire students, and they pulled out of University of Alabama after that. They were so turned off by that student not doing the research ahead of time. And with the ability to find anything you want practically online, there's no excuse for that. So research all you can with some of those companies, the websites I mentioned before. Know what you can about the business purpose, their mission, their goals, their financial health. You should be very concerned about their financial health. You don't want to take a job if they're not doing well, because you may not have a job a year from now. Research everything you can about the role. Now, you might have noticed that some HR people put a lot of information in job ads, some don't. I am of the mind that everything should be in there. There's no reason to hide anything. But if they don't, research all you can by looking at Glassdoor and seeing what people who have been in that position have said. Ask people you know who might work at that company, what they know about the role, about the boss that you might have. And if you can't find that out, then you might want to ask questions when you get there. And here's another really important point. Ask who is going to be interviewing you, because who is interviewing you will very much determine what questions they might ask you and what questions you might ask them. So the higher the level of the person interviewing you, the more strategic and higher level of questions will be, where they might ask you questions such as, what direction do you think the company should be taking? Whereas if it's your immediate boss, they will probably more likely ask you questions about you and your work habits. So how to get ready for those questions. Tip number 6. This is where I spend a lot of time with career coaching clients, helping them get ready for interviews. People get really nervous for interviews, and I understand that. That is very natural. So I want to help you today with some of the most common interview questions. Tell me about yourself. This stumps people. They don't know where to start. They don't know where to end, and they're talking in circles. And if you're not prepared for that question, it can make you seem very disorganized. And you also want to make sure you tell them all the important things that they should know. So if we go back to that 2-minute pitch, I'm going to actually literally go back in case you didn't get all that down. What do you bring to the party that competitors do not? What's the most important thing you want the target to know about you? What are your key selling points and accomplishments? And remember, to whom are you pitching? So to who are you interviewing with? And what solution do you bring? And I'm going to get back to how to focus on that in your interview in a second. So why are all those questions really critical for you to be able to answer? Because when you go back to, I skipped too far, you go back here to the tell me about yourself, that's where that 2-minute pitch preparation is really going to help you. You want to give them a little summary of what you've done, but make sure they hear what you want them to hear. Because again, if you don't brand yourself, they will. So position yourself how you want to be positioned. Next, the salary question. I should have put that with a capital S and a capital Q because that stumps everybody. So many people say, Rose, what do I say when they ask me what salary do you want? Here's my answer. Try not to answer. I actually have a video about this both on my website and my YouTube channel, which will go into it more than I can right now. But the problem with answering that is if you go too high, they might say, we can't afford you, you lose out. If you go too low, you've sold yourself short. So it's very hard to answer that question. So what you should say is, I would like to take the entire compensation plan into consideration. The compensation and the benefits are so important because benefits can be worth up to 30% of your salary. So really, how can you know what salary you want when you have no idea what the benefits are? Because that will completely change. Let's say, for example, there's no health insurance. Now you need more salary to pay for health insurance. But if you do have health insurance, perhaps you don't need as much salary. Let's say you get 4 weeks of vacation, which a client of mine actually had a job offer yesterday with 4 weeks of vacation, and she's so excited. The salary isn't so great, but she's willing to forego some salary because she's so excited about 4 weeks vacation. Because to her, her value, remember we talked about knowing your values, her top value is work-life balance. So again, you have to take in mind the entire compensation plan, everything they have to offer. You have to really have a full understanding of the whole job before you can say what kind of salary you want, because you need to know everything. And you know, it's a different story if you are only answering one part of the question. So not only should you try to avoid answering that question, but it's really true that you want a full understanding of the whole opportunity before answering that question. Now, the next 2 things on this slide are questions for you to be prepared for by what I would say are good interviewers, because good interviewers don't ask really easy questions. They don't ask leading questions like, hey, Austin, are you a people person? Well, how's Austin going to answer that? Of course he's going to say, yes, because he knows that's the answer. So a good interviewer will not ask such easy leading questions. They want to know, how are you really going to act in a given situation? So those kinds of questions will start like this. Tell me about a time when, or describe an example when. And so I've given you just some examples. Tell me about a time when you had to use your presentation skills to influence someone's opinion. Describe an example when you were faced with a stressful situation that demonstrated your coping skills. Excuse me, that's a good one. But think what you should do to prepare for these questions is think about scenarios that you have dealt with on the job. How to handle stress is a good one. Interacting with multiple kinds of people, or somebody who had a different opinion than you. Ooh, difficult customers. That's a good one. If you're interviewing for sales, any kind of sales position or customer service, you probably get a question like, tell me about a time when you had a difficult customer. How did you handle it? Give me one second. So the purpose of these questions is to determine how you will act in a real life situation, because generally past behavior influences future behavior. So rather than ask you these very easy, direct, leading questions, they want to know the real you. All right, so 7 out of our top 10 tips. Some interview strategy. I would like to explain to you what I call the consultant mentality. What does a consultant do? A consultant goes in and fixes problems, right? So no, you may not be interviewing for a consultant position, but at most positions, perhaps not entry level, but at most other positions, you will have some way you can help the company with their problems. So what I would love for you to do when you're in an interview is ask them, what are some of the problems or challenges the company is facing? Because if you can come up with an answer and a solution, you will get the job. They will want to hire you to implement the solution that you came up with. And you may not think of anything right away, but what you can do is, if you at least know their problems and challenges, then you can go home and think about it. And when you send that follow-up thank you, which you absolutely should do, then you can address the challenge. And you can say, thank you so much for the interview. And by the way, I've been thinking about that challenge that your company is having, and I have an idea that I'd love to talk with you about. And you can either say it in the email, or you can say, I'd love to have a quick phone conversation to tell you my idea. Now you've got them again on the phone, and you've just put yourself leaps and bounds above every other person that they've brought in to interview. All right, so number 8 in my tips is ask good questions. And I'm sorry, I'm about to put in a shameless plug right now for my book. It was published in October, and you can see behind me, I've got a big poster which I bring to book signings. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a number of other places. Find your where, because where you work can make all the difference in your happiness. And I'm big into work happiness because I think it's important, not only because you spend 90,000 hours there and more time with your colleagues than with your own family, but you know what? The company wants you to be happy too. I want to hire someone who's a good fit, because like I said before, if you're not happy, you're not going to be a productive employee. You're most likely going to end up causing a lot of other grumpy employees around you, which I don't want. So it's a win-win for the employee and the employer if it's a good fit. And my book is all about asking questions in the interview. So I just went over how to answer questions. This step is how to ask questions, because so many of my career coaching clients did not know that you could ask questions. So here's some questions. These are samples, some samples, a few. There's about 100 questions in my book, but ask the interviewer, so what do you like about working here? Yeah. See what they say. What do you not like about working here? They might say, everything's perfect. Nowhere's perfect, but it would be good to see what they say. It will give you some idea of the culture and what to expect yourself. This third question is very important if you are being interviewed by your future boss. Ask, how do you define the ideal employee? The reason why this question is very important is because, number one, he or she will tell you what they're looking for. You can use that information for the rest of the interview to make sure you come across as the ideal employee, but also now you know what they're going to expect when you're hired. And if they say, again, match up to your values, if your top value is work-life balance, and they say, my ideal employee is one who doesn't leave every day until the job is done, and that may mean staying 12 hours a day. And yes, I actually had a boss say that. So they will be honest about that. That's not going to work for you if your top value is work-life balance. So it's really good to know what they're expecting, so you know if it's the right fit, but also what you need to do to be successful once you're hired. It's good to know what they're expecting. It's like, how can a parent expect their child to do what they want if they never communicated to the child what they want, right? Also ask them, how would you define your management style? That's very important. A lot of us really don't like, that micromanager that looks over your shoulder. They probably wouldn't say, I'm a micromanager that looks over your shoulder, but they will say some things that will give you clues. So ask. There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking this question. And these questions are so important. And what I find interesting is that people know you're supposed to ask a question at the end of an interview when they're done and they say, so, we're done asking you questions. Do you have any questions? And they all say, I'm supposed to ask a question, right? Because I don't want to look like I'm not interested. But they don't realize that that's a prime opportunity for you. It's not just to impress them or to show that you're interested. It's such a good opportunity for you to find out information. So one last question, what is the turnover rate? And ask that question at both the organizational level and the department level. Why? Because if the one department you're looking at going into has a 75% turnover rate, that means 75% of the employees in that department left within the last year. You probably don't want to work there. Okay, I see that I've elaborated too much and I'm running out of time. So I'm going to go on to number 9. You can also find out a lot by making good observations. My book goes into this as well. When you go in for an interview, just look around. And again, it depends what your values are, but let's say your value is work-life balance. If you're there at lunchtime or at 5 o'clock, look and see what people are doing. Do they leave for lunch? Do they not have the time to leave for lunch? Are they frantically eating and working at the same time? Do they have pictures on their office walls of their children? That would tell me they value their family. Are there no pictures? That would tell me they're all about work. If your value is diversity, look around. I love to look at when companies have a wall of presidents or CEOs. I love to look at those walls and see how many women are on there. And most of the time, there's not many. But also, if you are an African-American person and you want to move up in the ranks, look at that wall and see, is there anybody who looks like you on that wall? And if not, that might not be a very good sign that it's a place you want to work. So there's really a lot that you can tell by observing when you go to an interview. All right, step 10, in the follow-up, like I mentioned before, not only say thank you, but reiterate why they should hire you. Set yourself apart from all the other interviewers. You can explain, like I said before, how you can help them with their challenges, or just reiterate, hey, I just think it would be a great fit because you really need somebody that has had experience interacting with a diverse group of customers, and I've had that here, here, and here, and I think would be a great fit. Okay, I just really went through the last 2 steps quickly. So I want to make sure to leave time for questions. And also here in the corner is how you can get in touch with me, my email, my website, my phone. I'm also on most of the social media. You can get a lot of free videos and articles on my website. Okay, did I get in any questions? I was babbling, so I didn't get a chance to see.
You're so sweet. Rose, thank you. That was an amazing presentation. So I apologize for the short amount of time that was given. I know that you normally take more, but it sounds like it was just such an amazing, groundwork for your book and for the information that was provided. And especially during this unprecedented time, hearing these tips is so important and vital. So we definitely would like to take any questions if anybody has any. Again, you're welcome to put them in the chat. You're welcome to click the Q&A button at the bottom. Definitely. So I will say there are some comments about, one person wrote, it's always good to be ready to go when the opportunity strikes or when you're ready, rather than struggling to pull things together. When you're in a dire need. So even if you're not looking at the moment, you never know what tomorrow brings. And this particular person is actually in the hotel industry. And so given, COVID and everything, switching industries, although, likely she's hopefully been fortunate, you never know, again, what the future brings, but just being prepared with, as you described, like your LinkedIn and your resume and so forth, it never hurts in case of any instance.
And those relationships that I talked about, you should maintain them even if you're happy in your job. You should always keep up with people so that if it happens, you're ready. And I forgot to mention one or two things. There was that one person who's watching who was switching careers, and I wanted to allude to the importance of sounding like you're on their team. And so you don't want to sound like an outsider. So if you're switching careers, you really want to make sure to go to those association meetings and read trade magazines so that you know what are the issues in that field and the lingo so that you sound like an insider, not an outsider. And I wanted to make sure to tell that one person that, and I had forgotten to earlier. And one more thing, anybody who had registered for the webinar, if you are interested in any of my career coaching packages, which you can find on my website, I'm offering 10% off packages for anyone who registered for the webinar today.
That's wonderful. Thank you. That's important, especially during this time. Now I do have, before we switch off, one person that says, I just want to make you aware that, this person wrote in saying, I love the explanation of the consultant mentality and positioning yourself to solve a problem. Thank you for sharing that tip.
Oh, you're welcome. Enjoy, use it. And send me an email later if you use it. Let me know how it worked.
And personally, I think that it was actually really beneficial whenever you mentioned, anytime that I've ever interviewed personally, I've always made sure that I take with me at least 2 to 3 questions that I ask, because it actually does, they look at you in a different light, knowing that you actually came prepared with 2 to 3 questions to ask. And it's interesting how even being on both the interview and interviewee and interviewer side, the difference is that somebody coming with questions prepared, the difference that it makes.
And people seem to know that, but they don't understand how much they can get out of those questions. And it just boggles my mind that they say later, I didn't know the job was going to be like that. But you had every opportunity to ask all these questions. And sometimes they're not honest, but when I ask, they didn't ask any questions.
Yeah.
So not only does it show that you're prepared, but you can learn so much about what your boss is going to be like, what the company is going to be like, what are the expectations going to be of you. So that's just a point I really wanted to hit home. And that's why I wrote that book, because I just felt like so many people didn't realize that, and it can really increase your chances of being happy where you're working.
It's amazing. Well, it looks like we're at 1:43. Again, thank you so much, Rose. I really appreciate your time.
And if anybody thinks of questions later that they didn't think of early, fine with you emailing me.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions or anything. So just people saying thank you so much. Very important information. But yeah, I appreciate you so much.
Okay, well, thanks for being here, everyone. And thanks for the opportunity, Austin.